So 50 minutes and about 30 seconds. I need to mark that too. And the
Yeah,
reason is I spend about 20 minutes every time I edit trying to find the spot in the middle
yeah,
where there's one episode and then there's the next episode.
yeah, yeah. I
And
even
so,
wrote down I wrote down 12 o'clock because that's when I thought about I should write down, when we started this kind of so
oh, to
that we
kind of
have an
monitor that
idea when to
too.
stop. Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I've got, just so you know,
What
I
else do you have
have,
for today?
pardon me?
What else do you have for today? Anything?
Oh my God, yes. I read a book that daughter Amy, who is probably one of our biggest fans, by the way. And
Yep, I'm
what she
aware.
says is some of the things that we talk about are really helpful to her personally. She's so happy with what we're doing. She just loves what we're doing, and that makes me very happy.
Yeah,
That
she's not angry with us for calling
no,
her
no, she's fine.
calling her out, but
She
for
was
her
just
calling you out and
she was just so embarrassed, that she would do anything to communicate her displeasure with us in any kind of way. And so, no, I think she's over that. But she was here with Andy last night and, said, your podcasts are great. I love your podcast. You're really helpful. They're very helpful to me personally. But beyond that, one of the things, one of the one of the things one of the things is she recommended a book to me called, I think it's called The Boy Who Loved Too Much or People Who Love Too Much or something like that. And I was just right before we started our recording looking up the author of that. Her first name is Jennifer. That's all I remember at this point. But she commented that it was an interesting concept. The book is about a syndrome known as Williams syndrome. And you can Google it, and there's lots of research out there about this particular syndrome. And it is part of the neurodivergent group of syndromes, somewhere in the realm of Asperger's and autism and bipolar and schizophrenia and, all those neurodivergent things. And she found it really interesting. And I ordered the book for her from the library. So it came in and the snow happened. And I thought, well, let me take a look at this, just to see kind of what it's about a little bit. And it's written so engagingly that I was able to read it before in a few days so that I was able to give it to her, having finished reading it just yesterday.
wow.
It's fascinating. Now, what I want to talk about then is, the neurodivergent community. All right. That in, and we are, just so I'm clear about this, we are all somewhere on the spectrum. On one side of the spectrum might be autism. On the other side of the spectrum might be somebody who we consider to be completely normal, whatever that means. But all of us in some sort of way are on the spectrum. And these Williams syndrome folks are are a special breed. What I liked about the book, two things particularly. One, it was told from a mother's perspective, a mother who is raising a child with this syndrome. That is a very challenging thing. I'll tell you about that in a minute, what the challenges are. But I really liked being in her world for a little while, feeling the frustration, feeling the fear, feeling the all the things that go with parenting, and you know them as
Mm,
well.
learning of them.
Just all the worry, all the and all the and all the pride that you feel when your children do something that's unexpectedly wonderful, and also all the grief that one can feel as a parent uh, when you recognize that perhaps the journey you had as a parent isn't the one that you need to take. Recognizing the
Mm.
grief of a what lifelong dream you may have had, one may have had, about what a parent is and what a relationship with a child is and what the future might be and what you look forward to, perhaps. The grief sometimes you have to deal with when you recognize that's not your journey. So I enjoyed reading, just feeling with this parent who was, traveling a journey she did not expect to travel on. I mean, that was very, very, as you have said now and again about our relationship, it's very, very therapeutic. But what
Yeah.
I also liked, and well, maybe there are three things. What I also liked was the genetics, the discussion of the genetics, the discussion of the chemistry that was involved in what made this particular young man the subject of the book, who has Williams syndrome. I loved reading about the chromosomal markers that were missing on one of this uh, young man's chromosomes, and there are like 4,000 on one particular chromosome out of tons. Okay. And unlike you, I don't keep the details in my mind. They just
How
vanish.
do they even track that?
Well, and again, I wish I had the memory to tell you when this chromosomal study broke. I think it was like in the 90s. They were able to what do you say? To 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 figure out what chromosomes went with what, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, Williams syndrome, the 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 folks with it are missing a number of chromosomes on a particular chromosome that cause a bunch of symptoms. And I loved learning about that. And I loved learning, the discussion went further to say that, of course, and let me be clear about this, nobody is exactly the same. One
Right.
Williams syndrome person is completely different from another one because everybody's then chemistry is different. The way they process, and again, I'm going to sound stupid here, but the way they process oxytocin compared to where they process serotonin and dopamine. I mean, my daughter can talk about all those things. My son can talk about all those things and how they relate to one another. Jane can't. But I recognize the the complications that are caused by everybody's singular hormonal chemical makeup that interacts with the singular individual chromosomal makeup, complicated by their diet, their upbringing, their environment in general, their pattern of exercise or activity, and all that kind of. I mean, human beings are so incredibly, extraordinarily complex. But I truly enjoyed the discussion of the genetics and of the hormonal things and the chemical things and so forth. But
Yeah.
Williams syndrome people, you might, and I invite you to question me, and maybe I
I
will
got
be
some
able to
notes.
fill in some of these blanks. Go ahead.
We'll put in show notes too. But you said something when you first started telling a story that
Mhm.
made me go, "What?" You said Amy, and did you say Andy?
That's her cousin.
Okay. Okay. I
They
thought,
hang
oh,
around
Amy's
together.
seeing somebody.
No, 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 no.
Okay.
They just hang around together. They're relatives. Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway,
gotcha. Okay. All right.
so
Updated.
Williams syndrome people.
Is Andy a fan also?
I don't think so. No,
Oh, come on,
but
Amy, get
I
on
have
that.
never asked him. I have never asked him, but he's never indicated that he was. He might be. I don't know. But Amy
Amy, you
is.
got to get on that for us.
Anyway, Williams syndrome people are missing some, genetic markers. They're missing some chromosomes or whatever, and it makes them love everybody with no distinction whatsoever. Enthusiastically, they will run up to anybody and everybody and hug them and tell them that they love them and so forth and so on, which, of course, is kind of what we would think our religions are supposed to be about. And yet it makes them very, very
When you say
dangerous.
that,
Yeah, go ahead.
when you say that they love everybody, you mean that literally? Like they really
Yes.
run up and in like an excited way,
Yes.
not just like they're
Yes.
they're very friendly to everybody and that's it. But you mean that very literal?
Very literal. It's an unconditional
Okay.
love for human, and the parent of one of these spends an entire lifetime trying to keep these children and then adults from running up to people and just hugging them indiscriminately. It's inappropriate. Do you know?
Yeah.
There's no filter. There's no leash. There's no, yeah. So they want to touch, they want to hug, they want to, have fun with people. But there's no stopping them. There's no stopping them. So,
So are they functional otherwise? Like
no,
is this
not
oh,
generally. Not generally.
oh
Some
man.
of them have high IQs. Some of them do not have high IQs. Their singular distinction is that and this one boy that is the subject of the book loves vacuum cleaners, loves things that twirl, and so loves fans, loves machines that wash floors and so forth. And
Yeah.
so it's just, yeah, I mean, it's I don't want to say like Down syndrome, but there are some similarities.
Yeah.
There's
Definitely
some
some yeah,
similarities. But
definitely some shit.
she says, you know like I said, it's the unconditional love for humanity. People with Williams seem to come closer than any of us to what religious leaders, gurus, and self-help authors tout as an ideal. But of course, the truth is more complicated because they come across as, it's not warmth. They come across and instill in people some sense of pity and contempt. Actually, it's like, get away from me. What are you doing?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And as a parent, to watch their children be rejected in that way, not accepted in that way, not, they don't have any friends in the way that we understand friends at all,
Yeah.
and it's just, there are no defenses. Okay. But what was also interesting to me, much, much later in the book, you know, was a discussion that about empathy, that these people, children and adults with Williams syndrome, seem to have an unconditional empathy. They feel what other people are feeling, but what they don't have is what she ends up calling a theory of mind. There's a cognitive component, being able to interpret and respond to other people's feelings that they don't seem to have. And so, they can recognize that you feel hurt, but they can't figure out why you would be. It's not part of what they can possibly understand.
Mm.
And while I'm reading this, I'm thinking, there's a perceptual, there's an impairment in a piece of the brain, the amygdala, that part of the brain that disallows these people to figure out why a person might be happy, why a person might be sad, why a person may be angry. They just recognize that they are. And there were some pages in the book later on in the book that talked about people who are able to feel what you feel, to understand that you have deep feelings of one kind or another, but they're not able to figure out maybe how they have created that. And I know that there are people in my life with whom I've had honest communication to say, when you talk like that, when you say those kinds of things, that's very hurtful to other people. And
Yeah.
there are people in my life who don't get it, who say, well, they shouldn't feel that way, you know? And they won't change because they don't have that cognitive understanding of what other people's feelings, where they about other people's feelings and why it matters to understand why people are feeling that way, particularly if you are the cause of that. I can remember having conversations with people saying, when you say something like that, it's like stepping on my foot. Could you stop doing that? Could you stop, saying those kinds of things? Could you stop that? And they can't. They won't
Yeah.
because they don't understand why it would be necessary. And I've been frustrated and, turned off by people in my life who are unable to figure out why they behave the way they behave, why they are hurtful. They come across ultimately as disagreeable, you know, like you talk to them and they are people to whom you cannot go with your feelings because they'll just ignore it. They don't want to talk about it.
I've got a wisecrack here for that. I was just going to say Trump supporters.
Yeah, they just don't get it, and they're very hurt. And they don't have many friends. They may make friends for a short period of time and lose them because they are totally, what we would say, insensitive. They are empathy challenged. And they confuse us because they seem to understand, they seem to get that we feel a certain way. They seem to be sensitive to feelings, but totally unable to deal with the feelings in any kind of way. They can't have conversations about them because they just say, well, they shouldn't feel that way. That's stupid. Nobody feels that way. Or, you know, get over it. There's, that I found really fascinating because, like I say, I know people, have known
Oh
people
yeah.
who are that insensitive, to whom I know I can't go and say, gosh, I feel really depressed today, and have them say, oh, really? How come? Talk to me about it. Let's share. You can't do that because they'll just flip you off or, tell you you're an idiot or whatever, and it doesn't
Not their
help.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's one of the things you know, that fascinated me in the last couple of days. The book goes on to talk about psych, psycho, psych, hmm, psych, not psychotic, but psycho, I can't, like egocentric people. That's the word I can say, who
Yeah.
are egocentric and callous and cruel, total opposites of the Williams syndrome, but they share some of the genetic genetic markers, and it's it's just fascinating to me,
Are
the
those
brain.
are those callous types? You know how the Williamsons people want to run up and hug and love everybody
Hmm.
right away? Are the
Hmm.
callous types the ones who just immediately start their day bitching about something?
Um,
Like, is there something
I
similar to loving everybody that the callous people show aggressively
think
unsolicited?
I think n- not necessarily that they would be aggressively nasty, but they would be cold.
Yeah.
They probably don't like touch. They don't want to hug people. They just want you to keep your distance. Psychopaths, that's the word I was looking for. The
Oh,
Williams the Williams syndrome and psychopaths share some genetic mutations somewhere. I want, yeah, they share that, but one is one way and the other is the opposite. But I find that fascinating. I just find the whole issue of brain chemistry, the whole issue of genetics in this kind of way, really fascinating. The book talks a little bit also about gene therapy and being able to manage or quote unquote fix, certain brain disorders, as it were, through gene therapy. But nobody, of course, is that what skilled, or that they don't have that information yet. But that may be in the future. Who knows? It was fascinating. It was a fascinating book in a personal way and in just an academic way, shall we say? Fascinating,
Yeah.
fascinating. So
Excuse
that's
me.
that's what I
Sorry.
have to say today. I
Um,
didn't write down when I started talking, so I have no idea how much time I took.
I actually got it. We're about 20 minutes into this one.
There you
Um,
go.
some similarities there to what we mentioned in the last episode about your husband watching poker.
Yeah.
And I know I've watched it too, and for this reason, I can't watch it on TV very long because I lose interest in it.
Hmm.
Professional poker allows for many players will wear sunglasses so
Hmm.
you can't see their eyes.
Hmm. Right.
They'll wear hooded sweatshirts and
Yep.
like maybe big cowboy hats or baseball hats down over their
Yep.
face, all for purposes of hiding the tells
Correct.
that you know are exuberated by when you get a good set, get a good hand, or you get a shitty hand,
Hmm.
or you didn't get
Hmm.
the hand you wanted, or stuff like
Hmm.
that, or you're bluffing when you place a bet. When I played poker at my house, I actually had tournaments at my house in
Ooh.
DC,
Okay. Yeah.
and maybe aspects of it were legal, maybe aspects were not. I don't know. I don't remember. Sorry, officer. But what I do remember is one of the rules that were what's called house rules
Hmm.
was that you could not wear sunglasses, you
Oh.
could not wear hats over your face, and you could not do anything like that that would cover your facial expressions or any other tells, because I believe that poker is just as much about sociology and
Hmm.
watching for a person's demeanor
Hmm.
as it is about the mathematics and probability
Hmm.
of what card is coming up next.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think that is kind of where, kind of similar to not the Williams or Asperger's, but also along that same line is, do you remember the movie Rain Man with
Yes.
Dustin Hoffman and not Tom Hanks, Tom
Absolutely.
Cruise?
Yep.
And he's counting cards,
Yep.
and he's got that amazing ability to do that, but he
Hmm.
doesn't have the common sense not to tell anybody.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of sounds like a lot of the same thing.
It's the theory of mind. Yes, there's a cognitive part and the what do you say, the feelings part, for lack of a better word. And one of the things I neglected to mention was the book does suggest that that women are way more empathic in the feeling part, and men are more detail oriented, more black and white thinkers, more the other side of the coin. And of course, that
That's
also suggests
what
that
was that book?
obviously,
Men are from
what was
Mars, Women
that?
are from Venus. Men are from
Yes,
Mars, Women are from Venus. That one.
yes,
I mean,
yes,
women
yes,
just want to be
yes,
hugged. Men want to fix
yes,
things.
yes, yeah. And they
And
are
you
often
invent to
attracted to one
Paul, and
another
you have him
because they
understand.
complement one another. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
You want to
yeah,
vent to Paul and just have him understand. He wants to tell you what you're doing wrong.
exactly.
Yeah,
You got it.
yeah.
And there it is.
And that's the other thing I try to concentrate on is, yeah,
Mhm.
I'm a fixer too. But
Yeah,
instead of constantly just telling somebody what they're doing wrong or what they could be doing better,
yeah.
I also try to tell them what they're doing right.
I think I mentioned this in a previous episode. Amy bought Paul a button that she programmed to say something like, "That's not the way I would do it." Anyway, so that's my that and sharing, all the episodes, podcast episodes that I have turned into articles for the Expression this week, that and reading this book and shoveling a little bit with this child shovel that I own that my son calls a spoon. Yeah,
That's
that's been my week. Yeah, yeah.
that's like another reference my dad used to make to my kid brother's car. My
Mhm.
brother
Okay.
Ryan and sister-in-law Erin used to have a one of those Mini Coopers,
Yes, yes, yes.
and he says
What
that's
did
not a
your
car.
dad call them?
He says that's not a car. That's a pregnant roller skate.
Yeah, well, my shovel is a spoon. Yeah. And I love that. And it was so funny. I think it was last year or maybe the year before. I can't remember. When my spoon, the one I had had since the kids were little, because that's how I ended up with it.
It
I
was a
bought them a
kid's shovel.
shovel. Yeah, I bought them a shovel. And anyway, it broke. And I can remember Jeff was in California at the time, I think. And I sent him a photo of the broken spoon. And then I had to go online and find a new one for myself. Anyway,
Do
that's
you
it.
prefer the smaller size?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it's very light. In fact, this morning I went out to get the paper and it was really, really icy at my front door. And so I took the shovel that Paul and Jeff use to get rid of the snow, and it's so heavy. My spoon is very, very light.
Yeah, yeah. We used to
Well, tell
use
me a
them.
story for a minute because I've got to plug my computer into it. I got to get some juice to the
Yep.
battery in my
Okay.
computer. So tell a
That's right.
story while I'm gone. I'll
Bunch
be
of
right
things.
back.
Yep. Okay. Bunch of things to talk about. I know what shovel you're talking about. It just looks like an adult shovel, but is a fraction of the size. We used to use them when I lived in Coperbrookdale Township. There was kind of a hill that would always catch the wind and cause a drift, and we would dig tunnels in the snowdrift, and we would use those shovels because they were a great size to get a good chunk of snow out, but also weren't too big, like you were saying, to that would cause too much damage into the drift and it would collapse on us. So
Hmm.
yeah, I know exactly what shovel you're talking about. That's your spoon.
Yeah, I'll send
Um,
you a photo just so you have it.
but yeah, yeah,
You can
it's
think of it. Of course, it
in
doesn't
other
snow
news
where
though.
you. What?
It does actually. This is the
Really?
47th anniversary of snow that hit Tampa Bay. 47 years ago
Whoa!
this month, we had snow in Tampa Bay, and we had
Wow!
almost almost freezing temperatures. We were in like the mid 30s last night. Wait a minute, no, 2 nights ago, Sunday into Saturday into Sunday. We were at like 36, 34, something like that.
Yeah,
So I was definitely worried about the jet skis that were sitting out back, but they're like, no, it's not going to be long enough, and it'll be warm enough again till I get back on them. So
yeah.
not as much to worry about. But
Awesome.
there is some other news from over the weekend for us to touch a little bit on the political side of life.
Oh,
Ron
okay.
DeSantis has suspended his presidential campaign and is, as a result of that, is currently dropping out of the Republican primary.
Right. And he's one I have always thought, is on the autism spectrum. There's
Yeah,
something there's something artificial, or
yeah,
there's something. There's just something. He just
yeah.
somebody
He's
said somebody
definitely
somebody said the smile never reaches doesn't ever seem to reach his eyes. And apparently
yeah.
That's how you can tell a sincere smile from one that is kind of fakey. A sincere smile gets in your eyes.
I got to see if I can if it's quick enough. If it's still there is a YouTube short
Yeah.
that pokes fun at him for that.
Oh,
And
really?
it acknowledges his medical condition that's been cured. Um, it doesn't. It's not coming. I'll have to search for it. Maybe if I find it, I'll put it in the notes. Um, it's a hysterical video about somebody who is unable to smile, and with
Mhm.
treatment is beginning to have that smile and no longer look like he's sitting on a toilet and straining. Uh,
Jeez.
yeah, it's
Yes.
pretty good.
Well, I had an acquaintance decades ago, and she would smile just with her mouth. It never reached her eyes. And so when I read about that years and years later, I thought, oh my God, that's Sally. I recognize that smile. Doesn't ever reach her eyes. Yeah. No. Yeah.
And I think it's also because you said it, uh, like it's fake,
Yeah. Yeah. They don't.
and can also
And,
be perhaps
I think,
condescending too.
Sally used it on purpose because it allowed her to maintain a sort of power.
Oh,
Women are known to be too sensitive, right? They're, known to be too emotional. They're not allowed in the boardroom because, their emotions would rule and so forth. And so being being able to present yourself as tough as any man, you learn to smile. That's not really a smile.
smile and nod.
Hmm.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. And so I always thought that, I mean, I really liked her. She was I really liked her. But then I, like everybody, I have a little bit of Williams syndrome in me.
yeah.
that
That's
people
why.
that
That's why
people
I
have
was.
cautioned me about for years. Go ahead.
Well, um, that's why I was disappointed to hear that they're not functional
Yeah. Like I
outside
said,
of
we're all
everybody.
on the spectrum. We're all on the
Yes,
spectrum.
I certainly see that. But the Williams syndrome people not fun because it's almost like that's not a bad thing.
Well, yeah.
And I think you
It's
see the book alluded to that when it talked about life coaches and Christians and things of that nature, all trying
exactly.
to aspiring to be this way,
Exactly.
but maintain the functionality of their life.
Exactly. Yep. 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 Like I said, fascinating. And someday maybe, we'll create the person who has the good part of the Williams syndrome without the negative, and add the or keep the cognitive ability, and end up with a world, peace on earth, goodwill toward men. But that's not tomorrow, obviously.
Yeah,
But
not so
fascinating.
we get rid of
Anyway,
the tribalism and
I've had a fascinating week intellectually. Yeah.
nice,
Yeah.
very awesome.
Yeah. And I did not know what I was going to talk about with you today until yesterday. So,
Good.
anyway,
It,
yeah.
yeah, I kind of got that. Um, I texted you a little earlier yesterday than our
Hmm.
usual time,
Hmm.
and you still said, uh,
Telepathy.
what was what is our
Telepathy.
usual? Yes, yes, yeah. You still responded with telepathy, and I'm thinking she shouldn't be getting that now. That's later in the Sunday that we get that. And I'm like, oh, but she's struggling for something.
Yeah, right.
But she's
Right.
struggling.
Right. I did not know. And I was really happy when you, at some point in the week, in the middle of the week, said, I have so much to talk about. I thought, oh, good. He'll dominate, the discussion. He'll come up with a topic. And then yesterday, last night, actually, when I saw Amy and we were sharing some ideas from this particular book, I could not wait to share it with you
Nice.
today.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
And I'm going to say, I took several photos of several of the pages of the book, and that I'm just going to send you those photos so that you can have some of the words,
Okay.
some of the ideas that unfortunately I did not take. I might get it back later when Amy returns the book to me to take back to the library. I'll try to find the pages that discuss the genetic part of it. And maybe I'm
Okay.
not sure I can find the hormonal stuff, but I think I can find the genetic part, the discussion of that. And I'll take a photo of that page too, because that's fascinating to me. And I'll send that to you as well, just so you have, some
So
additional
I
words
missed
besides
that.
mine, because I don't always speak well. I write better
Yeah.
than I speak, I think. And, the sentences will make more sense written by somebody else besides mine.
Well,
Anyway,
not to
so there you
support
go.
not to support the your whole "you don't speak well" statement, because I think you speak just fine. But I just caught one thing that I realized you did say earlier. You got this book the old-fashioned way
I
from the
did.
library. Wow.
Yes. Yes. In fact, during COVID, and maybe before, maybe after, I don't know. I got book after book. I'd go to the library and grab three and just inhale them. And and the library would say, utilizing the library, you've saved this many thousands of dollars. And it's true. I mean, I
Yeah.
love our library. It's great. And it's connected to so many libraries within our area, so that if, most of the time or much of the time, our library doesn't have what I'm looking for, but they have like 30 other libraries in the network. And so that they can go find it in another library. So I love that part too.
So, is that the Boyertown Community Library that's right up the street from the
Yes, it
studio?
is. Yeah.
Okay.
It used to be right up from the studio. Now it's where the Keystone Fire Company used to be, across
Oh,
from
yeah.
what used to be the post office.
Right. Right. Yeah, if are
Hmm.
you on that, Boyertown Historical Facebook page or
No,
group?
not much. No,
Well,
not
we were
much.
just talking about both those buildings.
Yeah.
Somebody was in the parking lot and took a picture of the old Keystone and said, "What
Yes,
was
I saw
this?"
that. Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, so you know what I'm talking about then." Yeah. I
Yeah.
said, "That was the old Keystone Firehouse before their current
Hmm.
location." And
Right.
somebody said, "No, that was never a firehouse." I'm like, "I promise you that is the I
It was
recognize
a
those windows.
firehouse.
They used to be
Oh, yes.
garage doors." And
Yes.
somebody else chimed in and said, "Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
in the post office parking lot," which, by the way,
Yep.
is no longer the post office.
Right. Belongs to an accountant.
Yeah,
Interesting.
somebody did the same thing with that photo. They said, "What was this? What is this? This is
Hmm.
what did this used to be?" And I looked at it, and
Hmm.
I could tell right away by the statues on along the roof. I
Hmm.
said, Those statues, that's the post office. There's more
Hmm.
inside, just below
Hmm.
the ceiling, along each
Hmm.
wall."
Hmm. Hmm.
And she's like,
Hmm.
"How do you know that?" I'm like, "Well, why else would you have asked if you didn't want to find somebody that wasn't from Boyertown?"
Right, right. Well, there was a really neat Facebook post that the State Theater had up recently, talking about the murals that were created when the building was first constructed or whatever. But the murals that existed in that building, well, they still exist. I mean, they covered them up for years, but they have refound them. Anyway, they're great.
You mean
So a lot of
inside the
history in
theater
this
space?
inside the theater.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
inside
remember
the
that.
theater. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So there we have it. I don't know how long we've talked. Do you know?
We do. This is a good 40-minute episode.
Well, there you go. There you go. And yeah, maybe we'll come back to it. Maybe there'll be more to say about it. But, as we confront people in our lives who cause us to question who we are, or present themselves in a way that we're not accustomed, and we are uncomfortable with them for one reason or another, learning more about how we are each different, how we are each different, how we all somehow have idiosyncrasies and quirks, and you know uh, It's fascinating, and I think it allows us, and this is what I loved when I would, present Carl Jung's learning styles in the classroom, to allow students to know that there are people are different. They learn differently. They process information differently, which causes them to be different in their behaviors and their attitudes and their feelings and so forth. The more you know about people, I think, and why they are the way they are, I think it allows all of us to be more understanding and to be more accepting, and it just allows for better relationships. And if nothing else, that's what I love.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned the quirks. And this week, I had been actually, this is the second time that I had been on Facebook dating.
Oh,
It's a dating app that's part of Facebook that not everybody has. And I
mhm.
was in like the beta version, the testing version, about a year ago or more, and got off of it because I wasn't successful, and just out of boredom, I recently got back on, and just recently, like within the past week, I finally met somebody that's actually holding a conversation.
Wow.
And in the very beginning of it, yeah, of course, now I got to give a shout out to Richard. Um, in the very beginning, and I think it actually would probably be, and I'll tell you why in a second, probably pronounced Richard because
Okay.
he's French. He's
Oh,
got a dual
cool.
citizenship with France and the United States. He's been here for 10 years. Um, and one of his photos was very J.C. Penney model esque,
Okay.
like some
Okay.
guy sitting in a nice outfit that was clearly put together, very
Yeah.
posed. He's sitting on a wall at the
Yeah.
park or whatever. And I thought, oh, this is a stolen photo from somebody else's profile. This guy's
Right, right, right,
fake.
right, 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 right.
And then in some of his very initial texts to me, the English was incredibly broken. Like,
Wow.
this ain't that guy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I've spent my time undercover, especially
Of
online.
course you did.
I just,
Yes.
ran with it. And turns out, this guy's real. He sent me other photos with his cats and photos of him cooking in his house. And uh,
Nice.
so I'm like, okay,
Where does he live? Where does he live?
Miami.
Or don't you want to say?
In
Is
Miami.
he in Florida?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
he's in
All
Miami.
right.
Um,
Okay.
and that's how I found him was, this is geo tracked,
Okay. All
it
right.
can get
Yeah.
people close. And at the time, he was in Tampa, but he had
Mm.
been here. He
Oh,
had just left. He just got back to Miami within the past week or so. I forget how long he said. But he had been here for work.
okay.
And so, yeah. So we'll see. Shout out to
Well, yeah.
Richard or Richard, uh, who wanted to know if he could watch as we tape this today. So no, this one isn't streamed, but I'll send you the info for my show tonight, which
There you
is
go.
live 5 days a week.
There you go.
And
There you go.
anywhere else you want to find me, just go to yergz.com, Yergz, or yergzradio.com, either
Yeah.
one or both. And that's where I'm at. How about you?
Yeah. I'm on your favorite podcast platform. I record them on Spotify, but there are bunches of other platforms where you can find Be Inspired. And of course, the art gallery is studiobbb.org. And I guess that's pretty much it. So,
And
I'm Jane. Are we
conclude,
signing off?
actually, you are actually a one of the morning talents at Yergz Radio. You
Oh,
follow me. Be Inspired comes on around like 8 o'clock, I think, maybe a little after. I do
uh
some.
huh,
There's some news that I'm poured over from NPR, and another
uh huh.
buddy of mine does a crypto and financial report that we repeat throughout the day. I think
Okay,
you're in like the 8ish to 10 window or something like that, or to 11, something somewhere in the mornings. Up the
very
middle
good.
is very early in the morning, and then Yerg's tonight's later in the evening.
Well, I will try in
which
this
is found
coming
there as
week
well.
at some point to send you a handful of new episodes
Great.
from Be Inspired. It's
Awesome.
one of the things on my own to-do list, not on my refrigerator, but still in my head. I'll get to you.
Important to know.
Anyway, you have
Don't
a
forget
good
to send the
week.
alarm. You too.
You have a good week, and maybe we'll be in touch. And I'm
Yeah.
Jane Stahl,
And I'm Yergz.
and this is Both
Both sides now.
Now.
All right, everybody. Have a great week.